Well, hey friends, Heike Yates here, and I'm so excited you're joining me for today's episode. And hello to all new listeners, and welcome back to those who are already fan of our show here at the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Today's topic is something that I know a lot of us are dealing with, and that is asking for something in life. And it may be right now, to use this as an example, it may be time to ask for a raise, but you're already biting your nails because of it. You may wake up at night, wide awake, sweating, mind racing, because you have a meeting with the boss today, asking for the raise that you know you deserve. You start to worry about how you ask the boss, even though in your mind you went over it 100 times and you know that you deserve that raise. So, but what exactly are you going to say? And how is your boss going to respond? And in your mind, you replay scenarios of what the boss is going to say. How will you respond? And you try to prepare for all the situations that you may encounter, or even that you're sent away again without another raise yet again. Before you even ask, you feel embarrassed, small, and powerless. Today, we talk to our expert, Dia Bondi, about how to ask like an auctioneer. Yeah, like an auctioneer. Clarify your terms and stand up for them, and negotiate with courage and confidence to accelerate your financial and career success. So let's dive into today's interview. I'm Heike Yates, a fitness and nutrition coach with 30 years of experience. I empower women over 50 to take back their health and strength to lead a vibrant life. Right now, you're joined by thousands of women over 50 around the world who stop dimming their light and instead ignite their spark. On this podcast, I do what I do best, taking complicated information about fitness, nutrition, and mindset strategies and breaking it down into baby steps that are simple, actionable, and sustainable so you can implement them into your life. I regularly interview some of the most inspiring women who share their honest stories on how they went from their worst to their best life, so that you know you're not alone in your struggles. Join me as we redefine what aging looks and feels like by taking action and saying, yes, I can. This is the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Today's guest is Dia Bondi. She has coached CEOs, innovators, and ambitious professionals and led workshops at corporations including Quartz, Twitter, and Facebook. She helped Rio secure the 2016 Summer Olympics, and she has spoken at the 2018 3% Conference and Pandora's Women in Tech Summit. After attending auctioneering school for fun, she translated the techniques she's learned into a program that prepares women to ask for more and leave nothing on the table, called Ask Like an Auctioneer. Dia has been covered on CNBC, Make It, and Forbes. Welcome to the show, Dia.
So glad to be here with you and your listeners.
Oh, thank you. So who is Dia and where's she coming from?
Who am I?
Yes.
I mean, that's a really big question. I would say I'm an adventurer. I am a connection seeker. I am an adrenaline junkie. But mostly professionally, I am a longtime leadership communications coach and creator, as you mentioned, Ask Like an Auctioneer. And the communications work that I've been doing for my life has gone on for about 20 years. And Ask Like an Auctioneer just launched last year, 2019. I'm also a mom of 2 kiddos. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I married my high school sweetheart. We're on 20 years this year.
Hallelujah. That's awesome.
I know, I still like him. I like him a lot.
Well, that's fantastic because that's what you hope for in a marriage that's going on for that long.
Right? It's so long. It's crazy. We sometimes look at each other and we're like, really? 20 years? But I still like you. Okay.
That's fantastic. No, yeah, what does a communications coach do?
So, I mean, there's lots of different shapes and sizes of communications coaches. What my main area of focus is helping leaders and entrepreneurs. Not to say that entrepreneurs aren't leaders, but it's just a different, being accountable as a leader to, a team of multi-thousands is really different than being sort of in an entrepreneurial context in early stage or mid stage. But either way, my job is to really help them find the courage to speak from the heart at the most critical communications moments in their leadership and in their businesses so that they can align their people, teams, partners, and cultures towards shared goals and move together. What that also means for their experience is helping them really gain a sense of control at those most critical moments where things can feel a little bit like, what do I do with my hands? Which is, a silly example. It's not I don't work on the level of like, what do I do with my hands? But the feeling's the same. Like, how do I take control and know what I'm doing and feel a sense of like actually being present to the moment? And then really so that they can have the kind of impact that they want. And it's Ask Like an Auctioneer is actually not that different in terms of sort of how it plays out in what we work on. Same thing, but it's more about how do you have the courage to ask for more? How do you put yourself in control of the negotiations you need to make so that you can impact your goals? So either way, when you work with me, you kind of get the same thing.
Because I always wondered what a communications coach does. It's not like a divorce coach or a relationship coach.
No, I don't. The territory that I live in is really about critical broadcast communications moments. It's less about the interpersonal side of it. When you think about when a leader has to step into the spotlight, maybe they've been inside of an organization for many years and they've just been promoted to a VP level or a C level, and they need to stand in front of their all hands for the first time and help their talent community understand and see them as the leader of what they're in charge of now, basically what they're accountable for now, to sort of reshape their relationship with that community and tell a story that helps people understand where we're going now. When I worked on Rio de Janeiro's bid, what that really meant was helping bid members stand in front of the IOC and literally deliver a speech from a teleprompter in a highly produced context, but super high stakes, and actually still have it be human. And that feels like just a performance end of it, but it's actually not, because in the script writing process as a coach, my job is to help whoever needs to stand and deliver that script actually believe it and have it aligned and authentic to who they actually are, while it's also tied to the strategic aspects of the story that the whole bid team is needing to tell. So these are all really a lot about really high stakes moments where the spotlight is on you. So yeah, in terms of the entrepreneurship sort of stakes moments, those are really like pitch moments, partner conversations, high stakes sales conversations. Those moments when, I'm going to say it again, like stakes are really high and you're in the spotlight.
Now let's talk about storytelling, because you have a story to tell how you went to auctioneer schools as a item on your bucket list. Go.
I did. What do you want to hear about it? Where do I start?
Man, that's a good question. I would never think of going to auctioneer school. So it's like, wow, why would you pick that?
So, I mean, the story goes way back. My early mentor said to me, we can't ever ask our coaching clients and folks in our workshops to do something that we wouldn't be willing to do ourselves, or try at least in these sort of performance moments. And so a lot of my job as a coach is to also remember, just to keep my empathy muscle really strong, to remember what it feels like to be on the other side of the experience, of standing in front, like just to be my own client sometimes, to remember what it feels like to learn something new when all eyes are on you. So I take applied improv classes here and there. I take dance classes here and there. I put myself in the context of fumbling publicly when I and learning something new that is kind of performative as a way to remember what it feels like. And also I can borrow and steal techniques from the teachers that I learned from in those contexts, even though it's unrelated to communications, to generate interventions that work for my clients. So it's a learning for my work, and it's a reminder of like what it feels like to be in that context. So I do that like periodically. So my kiddos are 13 and 10, and when they were teeny tiny, we were part of a preschool co-op in our community. We have preschools that are sort of parent run, and part of that is, and maybe some of your listeners have kids that, or at any age, that have gone to schools where fundraisers are a really important part of keeping the lights on. And so because I've been a speaker coach, and in the context of being in front of audiences for a long time, we had a fundraiser one year, and the parent community said, none of us want to get up on stage with a mic and live auction our items at this fundraiser. Dia, you do it. I had never done it before. I didn't even look up any YouTube videos or do the things you're supposed to do to prepare for that. I just made myself an outline. I got up in front of the room, and there were probably about, I feel like maybe 150 folks in the room. They're parents and grandparents and friends of our parenting community. And I had a blast. It was so much fun. It was, I'm used to being in front of an audience, but it's a very different thing to tell a story in a broadcast way, to be a speaker, and be an auctioneer. It's sort of, auctioneering is like this interesting thing where you're the only one talking, but it's still a conversation, because people are they're using their paddles, or they're winking at you, or making another motion that indicates where they are in the asking that you're doing as you're selling or asking for direct pledges. So you're in dialogue, but you're the only one talking. So it was a really fun exploration. A couple of months later, I don't know, I did it like, maybe I did auctioneered for our preschool for a fundraiser like 2 or 3 years in a row. And then I let somebody else do it. And during that time, I was out for dinner with some friends, and we were all talking about like weird stuff we would do in our lives. And I said, you know what I would do one time? Like, I would actually learn how to be an auctioneer, like to actually do it. And my girlfriend at the time at that table said, oh, that's so funny. My dad's an auctioneer. He was an engineer in Montana, but also an auctioneer as a sort of a hobby and a side gig. He had a junk shop on the side of the road there, and would go to different auctions to buy for his junk shop. He would go to auctions to buy for his junk shop, but also would auction items off at his own auctions for his junk shop. Yeah, it's so funny. And so a couple of years ago, I kind of took a low level, what I think of as a working sabbatical, and just sort of I just took a rest and a look around, it's very easy, especially maybe as moms or caregivers to kiddos, to really run on a long tail of burnout. And I noticed that I needed a break. Like, I needed to just be home, work out every day, ride my bike, do a lot of journaling. I did a few projects with clients and some other of my collaborators, but I really took a working sabbatical. And during that time, I thought, oh, this is a perfect time for me to learn something new that is not directly related to the world of communications. And my husband said, hey, remember that thing you said you would do? And I was like, oh yeah. And he said, maybe now's the time to do it. So I poked around on the internet, and it turns out there's something called auctioneering school. You can go to auctioneering school to learn how to auctioneer. So I packed my bags and I went to St. Louis, and me and 100 cowboys for 10 days in a hotel on the side of Route 66. I was like one of 5 women in the group. Learned how to auctioneer, everything from cattle to art to real estate to $5 box lots. And when I was done with that week, or that 10 days, I was like, what am I going to do with this? Like, really, Dia? And I thought, what I'm going to do? There are not a lot of women in this space. And I am a big champion for women reaching and sort of, chasing their ambitions and helping them be successful in that. And so I thought, all right, I'll do this. I'll use this as a hobby, an impact hobby. And so now in the Bay Area, I do not very many, 10 a year. I do fundraising auctions for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits that benefit women and girls. And in that process, after doing it for, a year or two, I was like, oh my gosh, everything I'm learning in this world is so directly related to how we can ask more powerfully in our careers and in our businesses, and how we can use asking, direct, courageous, asking, full of our own worthiness and I don't know, and generosity to ourselves and the people that we ask. How we can apply asking as a success strategy in our careers. And so I launched Ask Like an Auctioneer. There it is.
So, Dia, what was the first thing you sold
Oh my gosh.
on the auction? What's the first thing?
So at auctioneering school, that's so funny. At auctioneering school, it's funny. I remember what I bought at this auction, but I can't actually remember what I sold. I have a picture of it. So at auctioneering school, after 10 days, we actually went to an art gallery and did a live auction with an audience. Like you got to get on the horse like right now. And everybody had to sell two things. And I think what I sold was a set of antique cups for like $7.50 and one other small item. I can't remember what the other small item was. But that was at auctioneering school. The auction that I did for my preschool years and years and years before, 5-7 years before, they were trips and gift packages and inconsequential items that people still love to compete on. So
Very true. Because I was thinking, when I hear auctioneer, when I read your bio and all this, I'm thinking all these people that go, blah, 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 blah. Is that how it goes?
That's called a chant. And yeah, a lot of folks in the world of auctioneering on like the livestock side will develop a chant. In fact, there are competitions for people, for their chants. There's like a national auctioneering competition. Because I'm in fundraising, I don't tend to use a chant. I do have a rhythm that I use, but I don't have a fully developed chant. If I did, let's be clear, at a lot of the events that I do, by the time we get into the direct pledges and the live auction, the champagne has been flowing. People are not going to auctions as their like main way they run their businesses. A lot of these big professional commercial auctions, people are at auctions, buying and selling at auctions, like that's their job. And that's they're showing up at auction and buying things for their businesses on a regular basis. And so getting familiar with someone's chant is a challenge right there. So even auctioneers with a strong chant, if they do charity events, they tend to back that down a little bit so that the audience at least knows what they're buying at what price.
So, ladies, if you want to be an auctioneer, Dia did it. You can do it too. And I think it could be a fun skill to learn. But
it's hard. Let me be clear. It's hard.
God, I can't imagine you and 4 other girls amongst all these cowboys. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it was an experience.
But what about bringing us back to Ask Like an Auctioneer? Why do women lowball ourselves? Now, our group is women over 50. We're going into second careers, perhaps even third careers. We lowball ourselves. We don't want to ask, and I hear this over and over again. So shed some light on why do we lowball ourselves, and how can Ask Like an Auctioneer help us?
Because getting a no sucks.
Yes.
So we shape all of our asks mostly based on what we think we can get a yes to. So, sometimes I've worked with a lot of women. Women have come through my workshops, and women in the audiences for my keynote. They sometimes don't realize that they're lowballing themselves. In fact, once I started auctioneering, I saw that I had been co-conspiring with my clients, on helping them lowball themselves. The question, when I work with women, when I work with any of my clients around the critical moments that they'll have on stage, whether it's from the boardroom to a ballroom, the first question I always ask is, okay, great, let's put together your 12 minutes on stage. What are you going to say? And the question is always, what do you want? Like, what is the ask at the end? In business, we call it a call to action, right? What's your CTA? And very often, the answer that I get to that question is, well, what do you think I can get? And for 20 years, I was I love that question. I was like, yeah, what do we think we can get? You know, you're going to go talk to your executive team about growing, your executives about growing your team, and you need headcount. What do you think you can get? Oh, I think I can get 10 heads. Okay, great. Let's ask for 10. And what I didn't see until I started auctioneering is that when we shape our asks based on what we think we can get a yes to, and don't actually challenge what we think we can get a yes to, we stop deciding what other people will say yes or no to, and instead refocus the ask on what is it that I actually want, and risk getting a no. That's when you end up getting more. So let's imagine, you've got a leader in an organization who's going into, and I'm going to address the question of, career change. Cause actually I had a coaching conversation last year with a woman who was pivoting in her 50s. And it was super relevant to it's just like all the stuff we're talking about right now is super relevant to her journey. So, if we say, I think I can get 10 heads, but what I really need is 15. Maybe you're going to go into that conversation, and if you can willingly risk getting a no and ask for 15 and negotiate down to 12, you may end up with 2 more than you thought that you could get if you just aimed for 10 that was a guaranteed yes. Maybe you needed, the worst case scenarios, you have 10 heads. The best case scenarios, you have 18. So you ask for 20, negotiate down to 16. So we constantly shape our ask to get a yes, because a yes feels good. A yes is validating. A yes is safe. A yes is all the things we want, but it's not actually the thing we need or we want in order to actually further our goals. So I've met a lot of women who are like, I don't have any problem asking. I was like, yeah, I know, because you've probably been shaping your asks to make it, you always get what you want, don't you? Because you only ask for what you know you can get. But what we do in auctioneering is we challenge that. We ask for $4,000 and we get 7 hands in the air. Then we'll ask for 5,000. Then we'll ask for 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. We have 2 hands in the air. We'll ask for 10,000. We'll have 1 hand in the air. And then we'll ask for 11. We have no hands in the air. And then we'll ask for 11 again. We'll have no hands in the air. I'm going to sell it for 10,000, even though I asked for 11, because 11 tells me, oop, I just caught the maximum amount this situation will yield. And that's good news. Getting a no is good news. When I write proposals in my work now, I make sure that I'm making the kinds of asks that threaten a no and then negotiate down. And in fact, when I write a proposal for a strategic project or something, I send it off into the world and I get a yes right away. It feels great, but I also know that I didn't maximize the potential of that ask. What I love to do is freak myself out, put a number on my proposals that I think might get a no, send it off, and have someone come back and say, oof, outside of our budget, we can't do this. And for me to go, great, what's your counter? And then for us to work together to find that equilibrium that works for both of us.
Do you think that women lowball themselves going for the yes because they're afraid to not just to get the no, but that they don't deserve more than they ask for?
Yeah, that's interesting you talk about that, because I hear this might be controversial, but I hear a lot of conversation right now like, get what you deserve, ask for what you deserve. And while I get the spirit of that, I don't love that language, because the dark side of that means that if we don't believe we deserve it, we won't ask for it and we won't level up. So what I encourage women to do is actually ask for more than what they think they deserve or what they're allowed to, and challenge their assumptions about what they do and don't deserve. So it also, what I don't like about that language is that it says to us, if we got a no, then we didn't deserve it. And that's not true. It's just that what you value and what the person, organization, initiative, partner that you're asking they don't value it the same way you do.
Yep. Absolutely.
So we can't assume that the way we see value and the way our audiences see value is the same. It never is. So, and we can't decide for them what they value. So we have to make an honest ask tied to what we actually need to make the moves that we need to make to reach our goals in our businesses, and be okay with the no's we get. That's the flip side of this too, is we have to be willing to accept a no. Now, in my workshops and my keynote, which are the 2 main offerings in the world, I get a lot of questions. Why women don't ask for more? I mean, the concerns I hear from women, they raise their hands and they say, and this isn't just for women, but women are is the population I really want to impact with this. If I can get half the people that come through my workshops can get 20% more in their next salary negotiation that they would otherwise, I'm like, yes, I want to put more. My big why is that I want to put more decision power and money in the hands of women. So if that means the kinds of asks are non-financial, but they're about influence, they're about promotions, they're about putting yourself in a decision-making capacity, yay, because a lot of the asks we make in our careers are actually non-financial. So, the things that I hear from women a lot are like, do you have a question? And a lot of them are, how do I ask without looking like, and then fill in the blank? Look greedy, look so-and-so, look crazy. I have a lot of women who are like, how do I do this without looking crazy? Because no woman wants to be told they're crazy, right? Like it's such a weapon. That pushy, overly greedy, overly ambitious. Like it's all about how not to be seen. And I have found though that when women go out and challenge themselves and they actually ask for what they actually need to make the moves they need to make to reach their goals, very little of the feedback they get is that they're any of those things. That mostly it's they're confident. Also, most of the time when we go to make an ask, if we can explain it, we can ask for it. Even if for the freelancers listening, even if your explanation is, well, I've raised my rates this year. Like you get to have a story that you own about why that ask matters. So to the question of like, why do we lowball ourselves? I think it's the fear of that backlash, understandably. And that's true. That backlash does exist, and we see it in studies. We see it as a high level, story that women experience. And when I talk to a lot of women individually, it may have happened to them individually, but the threat isn't as immediate as they might think.
Mm-hmm. So talking about career change now, switching in your midlife, so to speak, in a new career, what would you do? How would you start asking for what you may have wanted to do all your life, but now you may lack the funds, you may lack skills. So how do you move forward from that and use the techniques of ask like an auctioneer?
Great. So I want to talk about this woman that I spoke to last year after one of my workshops. She's in Alaska. She's in her 50s. She was an engineer for an architectural firm for many, many years, 10 or 15 years, some long chunk of time. And she was ready to make a big career change. And the asks that she had to make weren't about where she was going directly, weren't actually about, she was wanting to actually move into the real estate business. And the asks she needed to make weren't about the real estate business. They were about the status of her employment right now. In order for her to reach her goal over there, she had to actually renegotiate her deal with her employer to go from a full-time 50 hours a week salaried position to an hourly position that was double what you calculate as her hourly rate, go down to 20 hours a week so she could start investing in building her real estate business. And she was scared out of her mind that they were going to be like, you're insane. No, and so the conversation had to be about what do you really, honestly, regardless of what they'll say yes or no to, what is it that you need in order to set yourself up for making that next move? And that I think that's where some of the asks that are a little bit hidden lie. So it's not just like, what skill do I need? But it's like, maybe look, in my workshop, Your Most Powerful Ask Live, that I bring to women's associations and organizations that will put budget behind women's initiatives internally, I never ask, what's your goal, then what's your ask? What we have to do is do that middle part, which is, what's your goal and what's the next big move you need to make that will move you toward your goal? And then what ask do you need to action that move? Okay. So for this woman, her goal was to build a thriving real estate practice in her very small Alaskan community. The big move she needed was to make enough money but have more time to invest in that career move. And so what that meant was the asks she needed to make were about renegotiating her existing situation with her employer. So I would offer to your audience, don't just think about goal, think about like, if that's my goal, what's one of the big moves I need to make right now that move me closer? I'm writing the book proposal right now for Ask Like an Auctioneer. My goal is to publish a book in 2021. But that's almost such a big goal, I wouldn't even know where to start with asks. So the question I have to ask myself is, what is the next big move? Big move, not small move, big move that makes a big, that will bring me closer to that goal. And the next big move is to find an agent who understands and believes in this project and the potential of it, because I think it's actually multiple books. So if that's true, then what is the ask I need to make? I need to ask agents, the right agents, to take me on as their client. Now, there's two versions of this. Let's apply the idea that I mentioned earlier about going for a yes or going for a no. Let's imagine, and I assemble a list of 20 agents that are probably the right profile for me. There are going to be people in that list who feel like a guaranteed yes, right? Maybe they're not that famous. Maybe they don't have, the names that I love and admire on their roster of clients. Maybe, they feel like an easier yes. And then there's going to be a bank of agents on that list that are my holy macaroni. Do I really deserve this kind of asks? Could I possibly ask the agent that represents, somebody I really already admire in the nonfiction space, or does that feel too big for my britches? So how do I challenge who I might ask to make sure that I'm not lowballing myself there, right? So I can use that as a level up. So I think when I think about changes, I think about, what's your goal? What's the next big move for you? And then what kinds of asks can you make that action that move? Does that make sense?
Your little story reminded me of my daughter looking for college.
Right. Is she going to go for the one that is like, oh, I could totally get in there, but it's not that thrilling for me? It doesn't actually level me up. I could do it. Or do I do I reach for the one that I really have in my heart?
I really want. So it was like my safety net. She had her safety net. She got in. And then she had I really want that. And I was like, hold out for the I really want that, because you're smart enough. You got the capacity to do it. And she did hold out and didn't lower her standards just to feel safe.
Did she get in?
She got in.
See, I mean, and here's the thing. It's kind of like we have to be willing. This is going to sound so sad, but it's actually very empowering. Like, you have to be willing to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And not actually internalize the answer we get as a comment on who we are and what we deserve. Instead, to look at it, I look at it as like, not this time, not on this, not now. If I get a no from the agents that I will approach, it'll just be like, not me, not this time.
Yeah. So what are some of the patterns in your business of communication that you've noticed over the 20 years when it comes to negotiating?
It's funny, like people ask me like, oh, so is Ask Like an Auctioneer about negotiations? And I'm like, sort of. It's not, I don't even think of it really in terms of direct negotiation. I think because when I think about negotiation, it's actually kind of limiting, like your daughter applying for the university that she really has in her heart, the one that thrills her, the one that if she doesn't get it, she'll be so sad, instead of going for the safe route, knowing that she has what you talked about, her safety net. In my language, we would call that the reserve, like, the thing that you would settle for and still feel like that's good. I can say yes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think of it in terms of just negotiation, because negotiation when you think about negotiation, what do you think of? Hostages. You think of salary negotiations. You think about contracts, but there are a million other places where we can use asking as a success strategy that don't fall into the quote unquote negotiation territory. So some of the patterns that I've seen in which part, in in the storytelling to set up the ask, or in the hand wringing that happens before we write the story?
Ooh, that's a tough question because I think the hand wringing is maybe even more challenging than the actual ask.
Yes, hand wringing is universal. Hand wringing is everywhere. Like it's like hand wringing is a thing. And one of the patterns that I've seen over and over again is that well, I don't know if this is a pattern, but let me just shoot it at you. You can tell me. We assume that we need the confidence in order to ask. That is super similar to all of my speaking coaching clients. They want the confidence to step on stage. They want the confidence before they do it. And what that's actually, that's not how it works. How it works is you get the confidence after you do it. So maybe you're jumping off a diving board for the very first time. You don't feel confident the first time you do it, and then you do it and you come out of the pool and you go, can you believe I did that? And now you have a burst of confidence. You want to do it again, or you know how to do it. So the confidence is actually an outcome of action. It cannot be a prerequisite. It cannot be, because if it is, we'll never ask.
You know,
So
such a good point, because many women in my niche of health, nutrition, and fitness, they all want to feel confident. And I'm like, well, you can't just be jumping out of the pool and say, woo, I'm confident. I'm like, no, you have to build confidence.
Yep. And you build it with action, in my experience. And so where you actually get enough confidence so you can confidently walk into that ask, confidently walk out onto that stage, even though you're freaking out inside, you trust yourself enough. That's what it is. Like, you can trust yourself enough, even though you feel shaky, even though you feel vulnerable, even though you feel open, even though you feel like you're not, you're unsure whether it's going to work, is having a plan. Like, that's the deal. So when I work with my communications coaching clients, like, if you have a story plan walking in, and you know what your CTA is at the end, and you define what success looks like for you, you're going to walk in there freaking out and feeling enough of a sense of control to do it anyway. When you walk into a really strong, a powerful negotiation, whether it's a formal one that is in the world of negotiation, or if it's walking into a conversation that has an ask inside of it, or a pitch, you're still going to have butterflies. You're still going to have all those feelings that make you go, I'm not confident. But if you actually look at your plan, you are. You know what your ask is. You know what your reserve is. You understand how it fits into your goals. You've identified the values of your audience who you're talking to, and how they overlap with the values of what is inside the ask, so that it's because inside of that. So here's a little side note. Inside of every ask is also an offer.
Ah.
Inside of every ask is an offer. And I've learned this more directly in auctioneering. There's a moment in, some of our activities in auctioneering are in fundraising is just to make direct pledge. Like, sometimes I don't sell anything. I just stand in front of the room and say, hi, I'm Dia Bondi. I'm here to help you live and action your values through your pledges tonight. So I'm opening the floor up. We're asking for a $25,000 pledge tonight. Who's in at 25,000? And when paddles start going up in the air, yes, they're making a give, but they are also getting the opportunity to action their values, to have the impact that they want, to name and be part of a community, there's a whole, we often overlook what we're offering inside of an ask.
Is there a right or a wrong time to ask?
Oh, I don't know. A right or a wrong time to ask. Say more about that. What would you imagine a wrong time would be?
That you have a dream that you feel maybe that's too big, or that you're not mentally prepared yet to go for that dream or that goal, that you maybe have not quite defined your goal, but you know what you think you like, but is it really what you like?
That's okay. So people ask me, like, who's asked like an auctioneer for? And my answer is for women who know what they want, and they're ready for a level up, and they need a strategy to do that. So yeah, maybe I don't like the black and white of right and wrong. Maybe you're Here's one way I think about it. You'll know you're ready to ask if you can handle getting a yes.
Uh-huh.
Like if you put an ask out in the world and you get a yes, are you ready to deal with the consequences of the yes?
Very well said. The consequences. Very true. Yeah.
So
So
that's how I imagine a right or wrong time to ask. And it doesn't say that you shouldn't ask. It's like, is the thing you're asking for the right thing right now? Let's imagine you don't have, your goals aren't really clear. You know you want something, but you don't know what it is. Maybe the asks are to reach out to 5 other women who are doing the thing you think 5 other women who are strangers to you maybe, but who you admire, to do to ask for 30 minutes of their time to do an informational interview so you can understand truly what it is, so they can paint a picture for your potential future and you can get clearer about whether that's for you or not.
yeah. So what is your ZOFO? Let's talk about the ZOFO. The zone of freaking out is where the potential is. Hashtag Dia Bondi.
That's right. So the ZOFO is exactly that. It is the zone of freaking out. The ZOFO is the territory that is above all of the asks you think you can get a guaranteed yes to.
A guaranteed yes. Okay.
It's the zone above the asks that you think you can get a guaranteed yes to. So go back to the headcount example we talked about earlier. When I work with leaders and I'm like, okay, you're going to go talk to the executive team. You want to build out this new, you're going to build out this new team to execute against this particular strategy. And you say you need 10 heads. Is that true? And the answer is, no, it's actually 15. And I say, why don't you ask for 15? And the answer is, oh my God, I never could ask for 15. I just like, that's too big. That's too much. They might say no. Why can't you? Because when I ask for 15, it makes me freak out on the inside. So the zone of freaking out is the place that prevents us from actually exploring the potential of any one ask, because the zone of freaking out says, how dare you? Who do you think you are? Don't be so unrealistic. You don't deserve this. You're going to get backlash. What if they think that you're ridiculous? All the things that say, don't do it. We read it as shame, but actually that's where the potential all is. And if we're willing to actually step into our ZOFOs, our own personal ZOFOs, and make the asks that threaten and no, make the asks that make us freak out a little bit, and then see what actually happens, we end up getting more and reaching our goals faster. And secondly, you start to read those voices. Who do you think you are? This is outrageous. How could you possibly raise your rates to your clients by an entire 20% in 1 year? How dare you? That is actually, when you're doing it, you start to read those as a sign that you're being courageous, not just a sign that you're doing something wrong.
Nice. Because I just did that last year, raising my rates. And it took me months to get to that point, in fear of all the things that you have just mentioned. And in the end, everybody just says, of course.
Yeah, we believe in you. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
And and for the folks who were like, oh, your personal training rates just went up by 10%. I'm not for you. Okay.
Okay, right.
You just made room in my roster for somebody else who can.
Yep.
And when we get a no, to meet the no that we get with gratitude, with generosity, with our own authenticity, with a heart-centered acceptance of it, is a really important part of this whole equation, I think.
Yeah. So what can people learn in your programs or in your courses when they learn about Ask Like an Auctioneer?
Sure. So when I launched this project originally, I was like, what is this? What is it? And, live experiences win for me every time. So my core strategy now is to deliver Ask Like an Auctioneer in live experiences, which right now during COVID, where we're recording this, those live experiences are online live experiences. So if you participate in a workshop called Your Most Powerful Ask Live, your And if you're going to learn the 2 key things we've talked about today that prevent us from asking for more, and then the 9 strategies from the world of auctioneering that help you step into your own ZOFO to actually embolden your ask. And you're going to learn how to build a rock solid ask plan using that strategy I mentioned before about first identifying your goal, your move, and then the asks that go with that. In the keynote, if you happen to be in an audience for the keynote, you're going to get the core, you're going to get the 2 key reasons we lowball ourselves, and a shorter list of the emboldening strategies. So if you have a chance to do that, it's still going to be super useful. Like, these are such simple ideas, women can action them right away. I do have in the early days, I was like, maybe this is an online course for women that lasts 8 weeks or something. And what I do know is that course completion rates in the world are very low. Like, I'm sure some of the folks listening right now have spent money in an online course that still isn't completed in their inbox. And my nightmare is to bring this to women, have them spend money and intention on it, but never complete it and get the impact that I really want it to have in the world. So I do have one online offering, and it's very intentionally 57 minutes. And in those 57 minutes, it's a class called Welcome to the ZOFO. You can find it, you can get to it at diabondi.com or at asklikeanauctioneer.com. It's $99, and it is 4 short modules. And women have used it in this last year. One woman, actually a former colleague of mine, used it to get in her late 40s, to get the largest raise she's ever had as an engineering manager in her career, which I thought was like, when she sent me that note, I was like, yes, that's it. And you can use these frameworks immediately when you're done with the class, 57 minutes. You can do it in one sitting. It's a Netflix and chill kind of context. And right away, you might have enough to serve you. Like right there, you might be like, got it, done, don't need anything else. But if you want to get closer to me and do more, you can also, I'm going to be launching that this month. I'm launching sort of open, this comes from the world of fitness and dance for me, which is what I grew up in. These are open, drop-in strategy calls called Your Most Powerful Ask group strategy calls that are 90 minutes. You can get to them. You will be able to get to them by the time this airs. They'll be live on asklikeanauctioneer.com, and you can get to them from diabondi.com, where women can just pay a small fee, show up in a group. I will pick 3 women to do live coaching with, and then we'll go to a Q&A. And I guarantee women who drop in on these classes are going to be able to amp up their upcoming asks. You're going to get strategies from the live coaching of other women, even if you're not a woman who's raising your hand saying, I'd like to be coached, that you can apply to your own situation. So that's how women could engage. And that's what they're going to get. They're going to get the mental model, and then they're going to get strategies that they can execute right away to make better, bolder, more fruitful asks.
I love that. Taking action instantly. I'm all about that too.
Yeah. And I don't maintenance a community around this right now, because I also, there's so many communities women are participating in right now. I want this to feel like bite-size content that women can come in and take. Maybe you don't take yoga, but you drop in for a yoga class one day because you feel like that's what you need. Maybe you don't take, you don't take a certain dance class, but you're going to drop in because you haven't done one for a while and you just feel like you need it to give you a boost. I want it to, the content that I offer in the world around this needs to feel like that, so women can dip in, dip out, and act.
Very nice. Dia, what do you hope to achieve by sharing your story today?
Oh, that's a nice question. I hadn't thought of that. I think for women to give themselves permission to want the bigger thing, whatever bigger means for you. Because bigger might not always mean more money. It could mean less money and more time. It could mean more connection and less frenetic life. It could mean whatever more is for you, to like give yourself permission to have it.
Nice. And how can people reach you and learn more about you?
Well, you can always go to diabondi.com, or you can go and check out the project at asklikeanauctioneer.com.
And you're also on Instagram and on LinkedIn, right?
I am. I'm on Instagram at Dia Bondi, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dia Bondi on YouTube. I do lives on most Wednesdays, and that's new for me. And also, you'll find some other video content in there and demos of me auctioneering if you really want to go have a laugh. And then you can always connect with me. I love connecting with people in the business context. So find me on LinkedIn and reach out to me, please.
Fantastic. And all these links will be in the show notes, guys. So you don't have to take out your pen and scribble it down. So the links will be in the show note for you to reach out directly to Dia. And I would love it too if you reached out to us on social. Go on Instagram, if you're on LinkedIn, talk to us. Tell us how this episode impacted your life, how you walked away with maybe more courage and more ask than you have before. And we love to hear from you. So reach out to Dia on Instagram or all her other social media channels. And you know mine, it's heikeyates.com or the Pursue Your Spark podcast. And with that, Dia, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Loved being here with you.
Thank you.